Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, an insight. Episode 176. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnuhu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Devotees, we have been listening to the fascinating Leelas of Sri Sai Maharaj as narrated in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, chapter 30 by Hemat Panji. Ramanathan brother says that there is a very significant OV in this chapter which had to be pondered deeply by the Sai devotees. This OV 53 contains many intrinsic details, so let us heed to the subtle message provided here as that comprises of many incredible divine miracles of Sri Sai Baba. It might be surprising for the devotees, but this is not my opinion. The same is voiced out by many Sai philosophers and research authors in their Sai literatures as well. This OV encompasses three incredible Leelas that took place in the life of Shyama, which has been explicated by many Sai writers as well. The 53rd OV goes thus. They always indulged in loving disputes and addressed each other in familiar terms. Baba loved him exceptionally, like his own son. He came at that time to Vani. Hemat Panji says Shyama would argue with Sri Sai Baba and both would end up fighting with each other every now and then. Also, they would address each other as they would do to their close acquaintance. In fact, Shyama would refer Sri Sai Baba as Deva, but the next word would be a very common term that is used in a casual conversation among two intimate friends. The association between Sri Sai Baba and Shyama can be compared to the one between Lord Krishna and Arjuna is one common interpretation of all the Sai research authors. This is one of the reasons to treat this OV as a most significant one. Following this, Hemat Panji says Sri Sai Baba regarded Shyama as his own son. So this OV gives three important details. Firstly, there were loving disputes between Sri Sai and Shyama. Secondly, Shyama would address Sri Sai Maharaj in familiar terms, and thirdly, Sri Sai Baba loved Shyama as his own son. To validate these 3 points, 3 miracles are explicated before listening to those. I would like to quote reference from Bhagavad Gita, says Ramanathan brother. When Lord Krishna was associated with Arjuna, Arjuna would address him in familiar terms, and in the later years of his life, he regretted for referring the Lord in casual terms, not realizing that he was the Supreme Lord Krishna. This is beautifully expounded by Dr. Keshav Gavankar in his most acclaimed book Shirdi Sai Baba. Dr. Keshav Gavankar was an ardent devotee of Sri Sai Maharaj who lived during the period of Sri Sai Maharaj. This book throws insight to various OVs and Leelas narrated in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, and the 3 Leelas related to this OV will be cited from this book. Dr. Gavankar writes, the bhakti that Shyama had for Sri Sai Baba can be termed as Sakya Bhakti. Bhakti is classified into various types. Let's discuss about them. Vatsalya Bhakti is like the love that the mother has for her child. The best example is the devotion that Periyarvar had for Lord Krishna. Periyarvar loved Sri Krishna like Mother Yashoda would love her beloved son Krishna. This is Vatsalya Bhakti, and all his pasurams, that is the poetic verses that were written on the Lord, delivered this emotion of his Vatsalya or Mathur Bhakti. Then comes Prema Bhakti. This delivers the love that a lover would have for his loved one. The best example is of the love Mirabai had for her beloved Lord Krishna. She had eternal love for Lord Krishna, and her devotion became an ecstasy for her. This is known as Prema Bhakti. Similarly, in Sakya Bhakti, the relationship between the God and the devotee is that of a friend. Sakya means an intimate friend. Next we have Dasa Bhakti. Here the devotee serves the Lord as the servant would serve his master. Dashkanu Maharaj's bhakti towards Sri Sai Maharaj can be the best example for Dasa Bhakti. He considered himself as the servant of the Lord and acted accordingly. In the Arati song, Sai Rahm Nazar Karna, बच्चों का पालन करना, composed by him, devotees might have come across the verses that says, अपनी मस्जिद का झाड़ू गनू है, अपनी मस्जिद का झाड़ू गनू है, मालिक हमारे, मालिक हमारे, मालिक हमारे, तुम बाबा साई. Which means, I, Ganu, is the broomstick of the masjid. Here he delivers his thought of serving Lord Sai Baba as that of a servant. Then there is Vaidhi Bhakti. This is based on rituals and customs. The devotee feels that he is obligated to perform these rituals to his Lord. Thus, there are various ways in which a devotee can express their devotion to the Lord. However, one may approach whatever path it may be, or even if one constantly remembers the name of the Lord, that is also termed as devotion. There is also Vairi Bhakti. Vairi means enmity. Duryodhana and Kamsa can be quoted as best examples for this, because they both considered Lord Krishna as their enemy and were constantly thinking about him and drafting plans to win him in the battle. Though their intentions were not good, they remembered the Lord incessantly, hence that is also termed as Bhakti, but considered as Vairi Bhakti. They didn't even realize that they are in constant remembrance of the Lord, but that granted them liberation. To conclude, the bhakti that Shyama had for Lord Sainath Maharaj was that of a Sakya Bhakti. This is a rare kind of devotion, and only a few can exhibit this form of loving devotion to their beloved God. This is parallel to the bhakti Arjuna exhibited to Lord Krishna, says Dr. Keshav Gavankar in his books. In various circumstances, the usage of words by Shyama to Lord Sai Baba were also very similar to what Arjuna spoke to Lord Krishna. This comparison of the great authors leaves us spellbound. Many believe that Sri Sai Baba is certainly an incarnation of Lord Krishna. This OV approves their thoughts. Let us now listen to the instances that supports the thought. In the Dwarakamai, as soon as the Arati gets over, Shyama would voice out thus: Deva, get up, go and sit in your spot, mix the prasadam and prepare the kala of the prasad. Which means Shyama is dictating terms to Sri Sai Baba. Deva, Arati is over. Now, without delay, get up, go and sit near the mud pot known as Kolamba, mix all the food received and consecrate it so that it could be partaken by everyone is the message. Next moment, without speaking a word, Sri Sai Baba will get up and sit in front of Nimbar and mix the food in the Kolamba as voiced out by Shyama. Devotees, isn't this astounding? Sri Sai Maharaj is the Supreme Lord, whereas Shyama is a just born child when it comes to spiritual progress. Devotees might wonder why Shyama is mentioned as a newborn baby here. Let me clarify on that now. If you recall the Leela of Haji Siddiq Falke, Sri Sai Baba did not permit him to enter the masjid. So, he approached Shyama to speak on his behalf. Accordingly, Shyama went to Sri Sai Baba and said, Deva, you are permitting many to enter your darbar. Why don't you permit this Haji to take your darshan? For this, Sri Sai Baba replied, Shyama, you are a small baby. You do not know anything. If the fakir in this masjid doesn't permit, then how can I allow him to enter? Think of this assertion of Sri Sai Maharaj. Was Shyama a baby? No. The term baby here denotes the spiritual level of Shyama. Sri Sai Baba has clearly stated that Shyama hasn't attained his spiritual maturity yet. But that simple soul Shyama is now instructing Sri Sai Baba in familiar terms, and the divine incarnation Sri Sai Baba doesn't possess even an atom of ego. Hence, he is following those instructions word to word. Isn't this amazing? This is humanly impossible because even when people who are of the same age group or cadre as we are dictate terms to us, our ego would shoot up and we react to that indifferently. Whereas Sri Sai Maharaj, being an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, didn't even react a bit, and without any hesitation, he submitted himself to the command of Shyama. This is a testimony to the fact that Sri Sai Baba was none other than a divine manifestation on earth. We are falling short of words to describe the attributes of the great Lord Sri Sai Maharaj. He is an embodiment of compassion and peace. Whatever we read or discourse about him is not even the size of the mustard seed to the greatness Sri Sai Baba possesses. His glory is profound. He is blemishless, and the life he led on earth cannot be completely explicated or understood by anyone, as it is very subtle, intrinsic, and exceptional. So, devotees, we just listened that Arjuna used familiar terms to address Lord Krishna, and in the later part of his life, he lamented for having used such common words during his conversation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Hence, he begged for his pardon, saying, "Achyuta, please pardon me." This statement reflecting Arjuna's realization that Sri Krishna is God is expounded in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When the Lord gave him the Vishvarupa Darshan, that is, revealed his universal cosmic form, Arjuna was wonderstruck seeing the infinite cosmic form, because he witnessed the entire creation inside the body of the Lord, which comprises of unlimited hands, faces, stomachs. It has no end or beginning. It is immeasurable as it is spread in all directions. The radiance was like 1,000 suns blazing together in the sky. One cannot see this with naked eyes. So the merciful Lord bestowed Arjuna with the third eye or the spiritual eye to witness his celestial form. Until then, Arjuna was under the conviction that Krishna was his friend and his aunt's son. Now, he got the realization that it was the Supreme Lord Krishna. He was engulfed with fear. He was petrified by the appearance of the Lord, which in no way resembles his advisor and friend Krishna. And now, the illusion that Krishna was just a friend or relative vanished from the mind of Arjuna, and his thoughts rained out in 2 verses. Devotees, exactly a similar attitude Shyama experienced after the Mahasamadhi of Sri Sai Baba and expressed his distress by saying precisely the words similar to what Arjuna expressed to Sri Krishna. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, sloka 41 and 42. Saketi matva prasabam yadu uktam He Krishna, He Yadava, He Saketi, Ajanata, Mahimanam Tavedam, Maya Pramadat, Pranayena Vapi, Yach Chavaha Sardam, Asat Krutosi, Vihara, Shaya Asana Bojaneshu, Ekota Vapi, Achyuta Tat Samaksham, Tat Shamaye, Tvam Aham Aprameyam. Commentary. Thinking of you as my friend, I presumptuously addressed you as, "O Krishna, O Yadav, O my dear friend." I was ignorant of your majesty, showing negligence and undue affection, and if jestfully I treated you with disrespect while playing, resting, sitting, eating, when alone, or before others, for all that I crave forgiveness. Devotees, it is very important to make note of the skillful usage of the words by Arjuna. He addresses Lord Krishna as Achyuta and then sang these 2 verses. Achyuta means the one who will never abandon. The reason for using this term here is to beseech Lord Krishna and say, "O Achyuta, out of ignorance I have committed the gravest mistake of disrespecting you at various circumstances. So, please don't forsake me for this reason." The same has been quoted by Vadi Kesari Alagiya Manavala Jiyar in his Bhagavad Gita Venba, that is poetic verses thus: "Un perumai tannai unarade thoழனேன் முன்பையிலும் நெஞ்சால் முயன்று நான் என்பதனால் ஏ கண்ணா ஏ தோழா ஏ யாதவா என்பன் மோகம் தன்னாலே முனிந்து மேவும் விளையாட்டில் விகாரம் கிடையிருப்பு ஊன் ஊவத்தல் உற்று உன்னோடு உடன்கூடி தேவனே உன்னை தனியில் திரளில் உயர்வழித்தல் தன்னை பொறுப்பினன் தாழ்ந்து. Thus Arjuna beseeched Lord Krishna to pardon him for all his wrong behavior these years. This was exactly the feeling of Shyama towards Sri Sai Maharaj. After the Mahasamadhi of Sri Sai Baba, Shyama was greatly distressed and lamented thus, Deva, not knowing your supremacy, so many times I addressed you with familiar terms. I spoke inappropriate words and insulted you. Please forgive me for all that I have done to you. He expressed his grief at various circumstances. After Sri Sai Baba's Mahasamadhi, Sansthan permitted Shyama to stay in the Vada. During those days, he had difference of opinion with the Sansthan authorities. At this circumstance, Shyama was asked to leave the Vada. Shyama was very disappointed and moaned thus, Deva, while interacting with you, I have been very rude to you at various situations, but you tolerated and allowed me to be what I am, was so kind to me as that of a loving mother. But now you are not here and I am enduring these situations. These statements were like the grieving report of Arjuna. As mentioned in the 53rd OV, the association of Sri Sai Baba he had with Shyama was that of a friend, and at times it reflected the relationship of father and son. This can be well illustrated by quoting from Bhagavatam, 1st Kanda, 15th chapter, titled as Pandavas retire timely in the 19th sloka. We can find the verses that explicate similar meaning. Saya Sanatana Vikatana Bojana Disvak Aikyad Vayashya Ritvan Iti Vipralabdaha Saku Sakeva Pitravat Tanayasya Sarvam Sehe Mahan Mahitaya Kumater Agame. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit and loiter together, and at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, sometimes if there were any irregularity, I used to reproach him by saying, My friend, you are very truthful. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the Supreme Soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuse his true friend, or a father excuses his son. In the above verses, Arjuna compliments Lord Krishna as, My friend, you are very truthful. This is not a tribute but a sarcasm. There is a saying that to remove a thorn that has embedded into the skin, another thorn must be used. Similarly, Lord Krishna re-established righteousness by way of the gambling game, so to indicate that gambling cannot be considered as a legitimate game, whereas Lord Krishna used that as a tool, so Arjuna is inferring to Lord Krishna in a most sarcastic way by saying, You are behaving as though all your actions are very true and fair. Arjuna is now repenting for all the inappropriate dialogues he spoke to hurt the feelings of Lord Krishna, and says that he, being the Supreme Lord, pardoned all my wrong utterings. In the first instance, Arjuna begged his pardon to Lord Krishna when he revealed his universal cosmic form. But this chapter is describing the retirement of the Pandavas, which is taking place after the Mahasamadhi of Lord Krishna. At this moment, he is again recalling all his mistakes. Similar was the case with Shama as well. This portrays the Sakya Bhakti that prevailed between both Arjuna and Shama with Lord Krishna and Sri Sai Baba. This even gives the perception that Shama might be an avatar of Arjuna, as there are many similarities in their characteristics. In the book Shirdi Sai Baba, Dr. Keshav B. Gavankar gives stunning explanations. He has quoted verses from the scripture Jnaneshwari, which consists of the conversations that took place between Arjuna and Lord Krishna, and to our amazement, some dialogues were exchanged between Shama and Sri Sai Baba. Those conversations and the miracles related to it are enthralling, and we shall listen to those in the coming episode. Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.